I was just watching a video about a tank that was stolen in 1995. Apparently, this guy had a mental breakdown. So he goes out, he steals a tank from the tank garage, he drives it to his girlfriend's house and blows a hole in her front door, and then he cruises all over town, creating chaos and mayhem, running over hundreds of cars and just doing damage as much as possible until eventually he was stopped. And I didn't know about this, but you know, it is kind of an interesting thing to think about. But despite the entertainment value of that, think about what it would be like to be that guy. You're going through something, maybe some sort of a breakup, maybe something he experienced that he felt was traumatic or difficult to work through. And so he goes rogue and he does this wild thing. And I'm sure at the time when people were looking at it on TV and experiencing all of this stuff, they would have thought, wow, that's really incredible that somebody would do this. But fast forward some 30 years down the road, and nobody cares. Nobody even remembers it. Maybe there's a YouTube video somewhere about it, but nobody's thinking about it. Nobody's life has changed one way or another. He knocked out power to a few people, and he prematurely made his own life probably significantly worse. But nobody remembers who he is. Nobody thinks about him. And life moved on. And so take that as a cautionary tale. We go through our own funks sometimes. We get frustrated about something. Somebody at the office did something that got on our nerves, or we decide we want to be passive aggressive about something and maybe think, oh, well, you know, I'm going to show them, you know, like we all go through that, right? Like, I don't think we generally decide we're going to do all sorts of chaos with a tank or anything like that. But we do think to ourselves that maybe we would like to, you know, teach somebody a lesson or make a point and just kind of be obstinate because we want to be seen or we want to be heard, or we go down the path of being a little bit narcissistic or passively negative all the time, whatever it might be. And we think that maybe whatever it is that we're doing, if we choose to make a scene and get attention, then people will know, the world will know what we're going through. And in some way, we're going to be validated for these feelings we're having. But the reality is, no matter how much you act out, no matter how much you try to be a diva and get attention for yourself and go out of your way to be noticed in your moment of pain, you're going to be forgotten. Nobody's going to remember your bad attitude a decade or two from now. So you might as well just stop pouring energy into the bad attitude and invest that energy into something more optimistic. The reason? Because society, humanity, the universe is an optimistic place. Let's look at World War II. Everybody knows about World War II, even if you aren't a person who lived in that time. There's a lot of war games that we play that are set in World War II. There's something fundamentally fun about flying a Corsair or an old tank through a war zone and you know, going to town on the enemy, right? We all like our World War II games. Maybe not all of us, but many of us. It's interesting how you can go through what is debatably one of the worst moments in human history, and then 100 years down the road, 80 years down the road, you know what people think about when you say World War II? Probably a video game. We aren't saying that the atrocities that happened, the horrors of war, that those things are okay. It's just when we look back on previous times in history, we don't look at that through the lens of misery and pain and negativity. We look at it through the lens of culture and optimism and the legacy of the human experience. If I talk about the achievements of the Roman Empire, we don't probably focus on the horrific things that happened in the Roman Empire. We think about the fact that they had indoor plumbing, or we think about some of the advances in culture and literature. We think about all of the advances they made in architectural design, so many different things. We don't spend our time thinking about how much we hate the Romans for what they did that was wrong. We appreciate the things that were beautiful. Now, there are some people who always look at life through a glass half empty sort of a lens, who just look at all parts of history through the perspective of the human condition is terrible and life is terrible. It is terrible and it always was terrible. But by and large, we look back with fondness on the past. Nostalgia is a thing. Look at the games that we love the most, oftentimes in the past. For example, to me, my most loved game in the past probably would be King's Quest. And that was a game with terrible graphics. It was an RPG, but it didn't even have very many interactive elements. It was all hand-drawn art in probably 16 colors. And you had to enter your commands with typed commands. There wasn't even really interaction with any kind of a 3D world. It was a very primitive game, but I loved it when I was a kid. Why? Because it was a formative experience for me. So there's that. But a big part of it is just that we look back on the past and we see the very best part of it. We look back on our childhood and we see the good old days. The best parts of our childhood are the things that we remember the most, for the greater part. Not the things that were negative, not the things that were painful, but usually the things which brought us joy. The more time passes, the more we are inclined to forgive things in the past, because pain is temporary, but the things we love will endure. And so the universe tends to be optimistic. It tends to be a place where we experience pain in the moment, but when we get through those moments, when we get to the other side, when we look back in time, we don't really remember the things that got under our skin as much as we remember the things that brought positive experiences into our life. So there really isn't a lot of point in getting angry about things in the moment, because most of those things, even if they seem really important right now, are eventually going to be forgotten about. Eventually, they're going to give way to something more positive. So if you knew that all the things that you're angry about today, all the things you get frustrated about today, all the people that get under your skin today, if you knew all of those things were going to be forgotten, and the only things that you're going to remember are the things that are intensely positive, then why wouldn't you focus on putting all of your energy into those things today? And that's an interesting thing to kind of think about when we go through the motions of all the different emotions we experience on any given day, to focus on that understanding that, you're not going to remember what you did or did not accomplish today, 30 years from now. You're not going to remember that somebody gave you a dirty look or somebody said something that was passive aggressive. Like, those aren't going to be things that you continue to think about or remember or worry about down the road. But if you had a really good day today, if you had a really positive memory, if you experienced something that was joyful, well, that, though, you potentially will remember. And even if you're experiencing something negative, potentially there's something positive inside that package of negative experiences. Not every single experience is enjoyable, but oftentimes, even in the middle of dark times, there's something that's pleasurable about your life. Think about epics like The Lord of the Rings. We love these stories where our heroes go out and they're adventuring and they're fighting these bad guys and they're facing certain death and all of this stuff, and then eventually they come through on the other side. And we appreciate those stories. Why? Because there's camaraderie, there's heroism, there's the joy of surviving the day to offset the fear of losing. All of those different positive things that come out of negative experiences, but only if you have the character to face adversity with an attitude that, this is a blessing, even if it's not entirely a positive thing. There's more to remember that's good than there is evil to define the day. Do not let your day be defined by darkness and frustration and hopelessness. Because if you do, chances are, with the passage of enough time, eventually you will remember all of the positive things that you had in your life. So you might as well learn how to enjoy those positive things in the moment instead of just waiting until they're gone, until they're in the past, to look back on them fondly. Say, oh, I remember back then when this or that thing happened. That was pretty cool. Did you think it was cool, though, back when it was happening? When you were experiencing blessings in your life, did you think of them as blessings? I know when I was a child, I always wanted to grow up. I think we all did, right? And yet, when you grow up, you look back and you think, my goodness, what a wealth of time and opportunity I had as a child. I didn't know that it was a privilege. I didn't realize how much fun I was having. I didn't realize that my life was in many ways pretty perfect, just the way it was. Negative things will be forgotten. Positive ones will stick with us forever. So always make a point to let today be a good day that you remember with fondness instead of frustration. As always, thanks so much for watching.